Hi, this is Coralla at CorallaFicklin.com, WelcomeNetwork.com, Welcome, WYLCOME Network.com, iStudyGuides.com, iStudyCards.com, and come into WelcomeNetwork.com, and you'll see all the different .coms and all the different subdomain names we have, and you will be able to navigate and decide where you want to go. Do you want to look at British English? Do you want to look at American English? Do you want to look at non-American English? Do you want to look at French idiomatic expressions? Do you want to look at different areas of Spanish? You choose. Okay? You can download the cards, the study guides, the books that I've written, the papers that I've written, everything you can download, anything that you can download, and everything that you can download, and everything is for free. Right now, what I would like to talk about are verbs and irregular verbs in English. Okay, and the advice that I used to give my students: there are certain things in a language, every language, you have to memorize. Okay, now normally speaking, grammar, English grammar, on a superficial level, and I mean this is superficial, on a superficial level, when it comes to maybe in the beginning trying to learn something. Now I'm not talking about pronunciation. English pronunciation can be very challenging, but I'm talking about grammar when it comes to nouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs. That English on a very superficial level can appear to be easier. I don't think any language is easy. I don't think any language is hard. I think language is logical, but first you have to get inside that logic. You have to get in, and that the way you do that is by getting inside of the culture. And once you get inside the culture, certain things begin to make sense. From the outside, it seems almost impossible, but you get inside. From the outside, the tones in Chinese seem almost impossible, but they all sound the same. Ma, ma, ma. I don't understand the difference when you say ma versus ma, ma, ma. But as you eventually get yourself involved, as you begin to understand a little bit more of the Chinese culture, I think in Vietnamese they also have tones, or Vietnamese culture, it begins to make sense. And you begin, believe it or not, you begin to hear the difference in tones, and you begin to understand. Maybe you can't speak it, but you begin to understand. I remember when I first tried to learn, when I first went to live in Latin America, and I couldn't speak the language. And I said, I will never, because it sounded like everybody was going. They weren't doing that. And I remember when my son, who was born in Latin America, when he first heard Americans speaking, right, he says, look how you Americans talk. Because he didn't, at the time, he saw himself more Mexican than American. He says, you talk like, wow, 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 wow. I said, we don't talk like that. But that's what he heard, and that's what he saw. And then I realized that when I first went into Latin America and I didn't speak the language, what I heard and saw was, and if I told someone who did speak Spanish, they would say, I don't talk like that. Okay, so one of the ways to learn irregular verbs, because irregular verbs are irregular, therefore they must be memorized, is to understand that irregular verbs basically have three forms in English. Three forms. Okay? They have the simple form. Okay? They have the past form. And then they have the past participle form. Now, certain grammar books, different grammar books say different things, but they basically mean the same thing. There's basically three forms. Now, the verb to be has more than three. I think it's four. We'll look at it just a second. You come into iStudy Guides or iStudy Cards, and we have about 3 different sets of irregular verbs. Okay, one is like an overview, looking at the most important irregular verbs. The other is looking at all, having cards of all the irregular verbs. And another set is translating the irregular verbs from Spanish into English. No, from English into Spanish, excuse me, but not just translating them literally, but also translating them metaphorically. But the verb to be is an exception, so let's get that out of the way. The verb to be is an exception because even in the present tense, the verb to be is irregular. Most verbs in English are regular in the present tense. Most verbs, I would say almost 99.9%. I don't know any irregular verbs. In the present progressive, the progressive tenses are the ing tenses. Okay. The tenses that you have to be concerned about, or about which you have to be concerned, the past tense and the I'm blanking right now. The tenses in which you have to use the past participle, the have. I'm just blanking right now. Okay. It's not the progressive tenses. It'll come to me. Okay, so let's look at the verb to be. So the verb to be is irregular from almost all the tenses. So in the beginning, the verb to be, for the simple present tense, it's I am. And it's the only verb that has three forms like this. I am, you, we, they are, he, she, it is. Okay? So what you do is you just memorize it. Because there's nothing else you can do. Because it doesn't make sense. I mean, why should it be I am versus he, she, it is, and we, they are? It doesn't make sense. Every language has irregularities. The past tense, also somewhat challenging. It has I, you, we, they. No, I, he, she, it. Excuse me. I, he, she, it was. Now, I normally doesn't go with he, she, and it, but this time it does. And it has two forms in the past tense. Normally, the past tense only has one form. So it's I, he, she, it was. You, we, they were. Once again, matter of memorization. The what you call it? The I'm blanking. The past participle been. B-E-E-B-E-E-N. I, and you normally use it with have, has, had. I'm blanking on the name of the tenses for whatever strange reason. Okay, so that's the verb to be. Now the verb to go is also irregular in the present tense, which is one of the few verbs that are irregular. So it's I, you, we. It's I, you, we, they, go, G-O. The verb is to go. He, she, it. I know how it's spelled, G-O-E-S, but it's not pronounced go-as. It's pronounced goes. And that S has sort of like a Z sound to it. Okay? So it's I, you, we, they, go. He, she, it, goes. So what do? You memorize. Take the cards with you and memorize the present tense. Then you memorize the past tense. And the past tense is, and what you do is, with the cards, this is the way it'll be. You have the present form, the past form, and the past participle. So it's go, goes, went, gone. And memorize those words. And in the beginning it sounds funny, and then while you're memorizing, try to think of sentences. Now most verbs are not going to be that case. My time is up. So this is Coralificklin at coralificklin.com.